So one of the things that I quite often talk about is how failure fuels future success in Formula One. And I mean, it sounds like a contradiction in terms, but what I'm really referring to is the learning environment of Formula One. Most of what we do doesn't really work that well. And so we're constantly on the cycle of evaluating, learning, improving, and delivering an improvement on a, it could be, I mean, quite frankly, it's almost on a lap by lap basis, not even a day to day basis. Literally on a lap by lap basis, we're looking at the real time data and then carrying out incremental improvements to improve, to drive performance. So learning is what successful teams are all about. And I think the moment you get teams which are not learning and evolving, I mean, you may as well be in reverse gear. And again, if you look at the extremes in Formula One, uncompetitive teams versus competitive teams, the uncompetitive teams just aren't learning. They're not, the leadership are not coaching and mentoring. There's not an upward trajectory of capability within the organisation. Whereas if you go to competitive Formula One teams, there is this deep-seated hunger to learn and constantly improve. So, one of the things you see when you watch Formula One is that a great world champion such as Lewis Hamilton or Michael Schumacher or Max Verstappen will jump out of their car and say, oh, well, we need to go and look at the data. What they're actually saying is we need to sit down as an organisation and analyse all the KPIs and metrics around how we're performing, focusing on the areas where we're weak, see how we can improve, and next time out we're going to perform better. I mean, it is literally that constant, relentless cycle of continuous improvement. Now, part of, therefore, one of the things which successful Formula One teams do is to make sure that when we sit down together to talk about how we're doing, the good, the bad and the ugly, we are completely open and honest about it. There's total transparency. There's, again, psychological safety where everyone in the team knows that, if they're struggling, the thing that needs to be done is for them to escalate that struggle, to put their hand up and say, I need help. And therefore, the leadership team is able to allocate resource where needed, provide additional expertise or insight, and support and mentor. So that learning environment is at the epicenter of successful teams, and something that never changes. Irrespective of how successful a team is. Actually, I would almost say that the teams which sustain success over the longest period of time are the ones that really embed that deep curiosity to keep improving and keep learning across every area of their business.
So it's interesting, isn't it? The whole concept of the learning organisation, I think, was coined originally by Peter Senge. But he talks about you can only have a learning organisation if everyone in your organisation is learning, because it doesn't learn by itself. The organisation is nothing if it's not its people, right? And it was interesting. I once had a CEO say to me, "I want you to help me create a learning organisation." And I went, well, yeah, we could charge you a huge amount of money and create some amazing courses. I said, but how about you try this? Just start talking about it in every interaction you have, whether it's a town hall, whether it's a one-to-one with your DRs, whether it's walking around the shop floor. Talk about learning. Talk about what you've learned. Ask other people what they've learned. And he did this for 3 months solid, and pretty much every interaction. And funny enough, learning just spread across the whole company, right? It just became, people made time for it, people brought new ideas to the party, and it's so important. I mean, we all think, well, surely it can't be that important. Well, there's some pretty big brands, and we could name things like Kodak, we could name Blockbuster, we could name Nokia, right? These are huge, dominant brands that did not learn fast enough and made a massive misjudgment about where customers were going, where technology was going, and pretty much bet everything on keep everything the same as it is today, we'll be okay. I think the Nokia CEO once said, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we failed. And it's really interesting that these organizations just couldn't see the future, and they couldn't see the future because no one was learning. No one was really starting to think about where the marketplace was going. Kodak, to put all their eggs in one basket around film because it's what they'd always done. So it's really key, isn't it, that organizations create the environment to learn and the space for people to learn, with the sort of confidence that if their people are learning, the organisation will learn, and we can move forward at pace.
It's really interesting, when you talk, Adrian, in the book about the arrogance of expertise. You mentioned Kodak and Nokia as examples. We see it in Formula One with sometimes hugely successful teams that just fall off their competitive pedestal, and what you're actually seeing there is a degree of hubris sets in. They become complacent and they stop learning, and they actually believe they know it all. And we've seen a couple of really glaring examples of that in Formula One over the last decade, with really, previously super successful teams fall on hard times. And it actually, in some cases, takes years and years before they finally wake up and realize that the entire industry has moved on, that they have stopped learning, and this is one of the reasons why we often say in Formula One, you're only as good as your last race. And if you haven't won the last race, you need to be learning something, because, otherwise, the competition is just going to stretch further ahead.
For more information, please visit sullivanstanley.com/future business formula.